Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do another Andrew Tate reaction video because my first video got a lot of traction. And a lot of people said that I'm misunderstanding him, so I'm going to give this another go and try to see what he's all about. I want to see for myself and I want to judge for myself, and I'm going to try to be as impartial as possible. So yeah, let's give it a try.
Well, some of the opinions Andrew Tate shares in his videos are undeniably deeply offensive. We're going to show you some of them on this show. I think you should see them for yourself, not simply hear what he says about them or what other people say about them. Well, welcome, first of all. You come all the way from Romania to do this interview.
Correct.
What do you hope to achieve from this interview? Why are you here?
It'd be interesting to have a conversation with you. You've certainly been the subject of your own divided opinions in the world. There's a lot of people who would say some of the things you say are perhaps dangerous or toxic. So I thought you'd be a good person to speak to about this subject.
Yeah, I think Piers kind of, well, he gives the impression that he marches to the beat of his own drums. And he's trying as much as possible, at least that's the impression I get, to just be himself and not be influenced by what people want to hear or see in media. So I think this is a great platform for him to tell us who he is and explain to us a lot of the things that have been going on surrounding himself. I'm speaking about Andrew Tate here.
I didn't know much about you before this year, and then I suddenly became very aware of you, as the world did, because, as I said earlier, you were the #1 subject searched on Google ahead of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was even possible.
Yeah.
Why did you get suddenly so popular / infamous, do you think?
I exploded. I certainly didn't do that with magic. I've been on the internet for a very long time. I think in the world we live in now, as the other side, the people who disagree with me, as they get more and more tyrannical in their censorships and their hate mobs, etc., as standard masculine practices are deemed toxic. I didn't put a magic spell on everybody. I managed to accumulate a large amount of affinity with the male populace across the Western world because I'm simply saying things that many men believe, think, and feel.
The problem I would say is
I think I did mention this before in one of my videos. I think Andrew Tate appeals to a lot of people that are, how do I say this? The world is changing and it's becoming more liberal and, should I say, open and less reserved. And traditional values are getting thrown out the window faster than they've ever been before in humanity, I guess, in history. And I think that he kind of holds on to a lot of those traditional values and speaks about them. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with what he's saying, and I'm also not saying that that's what everyone thinks, but there certainly are some ideas that he's appealing to. He may not be very articulate in the way that he expresses his points of views, but he definitely appeals to certain emotions, should I say, or sometimes concerns that people have about the way the world is changing and the way those structures, whether it's family structures or society structures, relationships amongst people, how they're changing. And whether we agree with him or not, I think it's a great way to kind of observe what is going on with culture today and with values that we have, and try to understand where people stand and why people resist a lot of the changes that are going on. The likes of Donald Trump came in a similar way to Andrew Tate, I guess.
I'll play you just a clip off the top. This is from Joe Rogan, who's somebody I absolutely love.
Sure.
And I think it explains to me what I presume my issue with you is going to be, right?
Correct.
And you,
All right,
you have absolutely got the right to try and persuade me otherwise.
Sure.
But Joe Rogan said this about you.
My 12-year-old and my 14-year-old asked me about Andrew Tate.
And
My
what'd you say?
14-year-old
What'd you
asked
say?
me, I said he's a legit world champion kickboxer. I go, I like him a lot. Why do you like him? And I was asking him. And they said he says a lot of funny stuff on Twitter and TikTok. He f***ed up with the misogynist stuff.
Yes.
Because if he didn't do that, if he just did the pro-male stuff.
So I thought that was interesting because when I've gone over everything that's been at the centre of the debate about Andrew Tate, I come down with Joe Rogan in the sense that there's a lot of stuff you say I agree with. You know, I've got 3 sons in their 20s. It's not easy, actually, being a young male in the modern world. And I think a lot of the things that you say about that can resonate with them. Yeah. The problem comes with the, I don't know, 10, 20% or whatever of your output, which on the face of it appears to be blatant misogyny. And when you couple that with your massive influence and huge reach, that is why the social media companies have decided to effectively cancel you. I don't believe in cancellation. I don't believe in censorship particularly. That's why I've invited you to come on the show. But I do think a lot of the things you've said are blatant misogyny. Do you accept that?
So you made a very interesting point there. You just said on the face of it appear to be blatantly misogynistic. I understand that on the face of some of the long format content I've made, if you're going to take a few seconds out of hours, chop it up, put it all over social media, accompanied with my massive fame, then things can absolutely not be taken out of context. I do not hate women in any regard. I have no negative relationship with women. No women have come forward saying I've hurt them. I have no criminal record for hurting women. There's no way I can be seen as the face or the devil in regards to how men treat women on the planet. I'm absolutely and utterly the opposite. I believe in protecting and providing. I've been misunderstood. There's been large contingents of people who have tried very hard to purport lies about me. And the truth of the matter is, I've been producing content for a very long time. Hours and hours of videos been cut down to 2 or 3 seconds of clip. Those clips have gone viral and people misunderstand me.
But I think you've used this.
That's a good point. I think a lot of what I've seen, or some of the first things that I heard about Andrew Tate, were just clips that were like, oh, look at this part. This is what he said. And it's like, that's the thing with like viral clips. They don't show the context, and you kind of have a snap judgment of someone or their ideas based on like what's going around on social media. So it's a bit difficult to be aware of that. You have to remind yourself that these are snapshots, sound bites, and they don't necessarily represent what the person was trying to say or was actually saying in the conversation. There could be a lot more to it. So these days, I try not to follow just like what's on social media and try to make judgments on people without actually trying to hear the full story. I try. I'm not saying that I'm good at it, but I try my best not to fall into that trap. But I guess here he is defending himself and saying that a lot of what's put out there is just small clips of, the most outrageous sounding things, and it doesn't necessarily represent his point of view or what he was trying to say. And I think he makes a good point. Let's continue.
This phrase would be taken out of context, and I'm not sure that is correct in the sense that it still comes out of your mouth. And some of the things some of the things you've said, I just think are blatantly.
Well, let's do them. Let's hear them.
Let's go through some.
Sure.
Right. So you said this about Me Too / rape. This is probably 40% of the reason I moved to Romania. In Eastern Europe, none of this garbage flies. You go to the police and say he raped me back in 1988. They'll say, well, you should have done something about it back then.
Yeah, so the point I was making was obviously at the height of the Me Too scandal, and also if we look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, there's been a lot of high-profile cases where men have been accused of things they did not do without evidence, and their lives have been completely and utterly destroyed.
Right.
When I say these things, people sit and say that, oh, he hates women. I don't hate women. I think rape is disgusting. I would take a stronger stance on rape than the British government. I think these people should face the death penalty. But to sit and say that women without evidence can go forward and just make up accusations against men, even though they've been repeatedly proven to destroy men's lives at will, is absolutely and utterly
What about a
asinine.
woman who was raped back in 1988 and goes to the police?
Then the man should face absolute and complete justice.
But do you understand that when that clip appears on TikTok as a clip, and all right,
as a clip, completely.
Okay, but it's still something that came out of your mouth. Do you accept that when that appears on TikTok, a lot of young, maybe not as smart as you, young men, right, impressionable teenagers, will read that and go, what's he saying here? Is he saying that rape doesn't exist?
No, completely. I'm not going to sit here as a professional and say that I can't be taken out of context. What I will say is that one small sentence you've taken was from a 1-hour video where I explained that, of course, rape is disgusting. Of course, everybody should be punished for their crimes regardless of when they happen. But people are not perfect, male and female. And if you give women the opportunity to destroy men's lives without evidence, there's going to be a contingent of women who will do that. I'm trying to make a balanced and nuanced argument in a world where people have no attention span. They're going to take a few seconds, put it online, decide someone's good or bad, not be interested in the longer format video. And here I am. No, I'm certainly a person who takes personal responsibility. That's who I am as a person. But we live in a world now with TikTok videos 5 or 6 seconds long. There's no content.
Do you think women?
Well, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think, yeah, well, when it comes to like rape and all those, I think it's less likely that someone would lie about it than it is likely. And sometimes when you make those statements, we're kind of highlighting the very small minority that might do something, let's say, out of spite or for whatever reason, like falsely accuse someone. But I think, I personally think it's less likely that a woman would falsely accuse. And I don't think that the few that do it should overshadow, the many that don't. And I don't think they should be representative of them. So I think it's a sensitive topic. And we have to be careful how we speak about these things because I can imagine that it would be a very traumatizing experience. And one of the worst things a victim of anything could experience is not being believed or accused of lying. That's like rubbing, salt in the wounds kind of thing. So I think people have to just be sensitive about the whole thing. I would say, listen to the person that's coming forward and give them full consideration of what they have to say about their experience.
Are the property of men?
No, the point I was making...
Why have you said they are?
Because I made a religious point. I said that when a man marries a woman, the woman's father walks her down the aisle, and hands her away to the man. Traditionally, this is what it says in the Bible. I'm a religious person. I believe in God. I live in the most religious country in the world.
So you do think that the woman becomes the man?
I think she takes his last name.
I mean, let's watch the clip that you said about this so that we can get it in context.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes. When a bride is walking down the aisle to marry the groom, the father walks next to her and gives her away. True or false?
Absolutely.
But I've been married twice, as it turns out, and on both occasions, I didn't believe that the woman was being handed to me as chattel, as property.
See, that's where, I'm trying to understand, the whole Andrew Tate, way of expressing his ideas, because something like that sounds very misogynistic, and he doesn't believe that he is, and I sometimes, in my last comment section, some people were saying that he's not being, he doesn't mean those things literally. So this is where I'm trying to understand, when he says that, is he saying it for views, or does he really believe that, a bride is her husband's property? And if he is saying it just for views, then I guess people who are concerned about the things that he says, they have a point when they say that, he has some kind of responsibility to make sure a lot of the things that he says don't, give a different impression. Because I can imagine, if you tell me an adult, that this is, he doesn't mean it literally, like what he's saying. I can get it, but if it's a kid, he or she might not necessarily understand the nuance and might think that this is literally how we should think and feel about our brides. And so I feel like people do have a point when they say that he has to be careful. But I guess I get that it's like, a joke or whatever. He doesn't mean it literally. I've heard comedians make jokes about things that, I guess it's a context of comedy, but have someone, take a clip and it might also give the wrong impression to young people. So it's definitely tricky, but yeah.
Property.
Perhaps the way the reason I'm asked that question repeatedly, and I'm asked in a loaded way.
So would you rephrase what you said there?
Now, that's an interesting point about phrasing. The way I would say things before I was famous, I have to take personal responsibility and accept that if I make a video that 500 people see and 1% of them misunderstand it, that's not a problem. If I make a video that 5 million people see and 1% of them understand.
So specifically on that point, I think my sister is her husband's property.
She took his last name. She married him. She wanted to join his family. She has said it herself.
Right. So she's
still a sovereign individual. She's absolutely not a sovereign individual.
Property means that the husband owns your sister.
Listen, my friend, if we want to argue about this, you need to go back to the Bible, to the Quran. You need to argue with religious leaders.
No, I'm not talking about anything in the Bible or Quran.
But that's what it says.
No, I'm asking you what you think.
I think that if a woman marries a man and she decides to take his last name, that they have different roles and responsibilities within that marriage, and I believe that.
That's not the question.
I believe the father.
Don't behave like a politician.
The father hands her to the man.
Right, but don't be a politician, because I think you're a straight talker, right? You keep telling me you're a straight talker. I think my sister is her husband's property. Do you regret saying it like that?
I understand that with my newfound fame, perhaps it could be phrased differently. However, I still believe that a woman is given to the man in marriage. That's what I believe.
Yeah, but not as property.
No, the property is the word that other people use when they ask me the question.
But as an equal partner in a loving union, that's what marriage actually means. It doesn't mean that when you get married, the woman is given to you as a bit of chattel.
Agreed.
So why say it?
But that's the way that people ask me the question. People say to me, they ask the
question.
Hang on,
you can't blame people for asking you questions. Surely, if you want to be accountable for what you've said, you've got to own your responses, not blame the question.
I own the response.
Like me asking you a question now and you say something and then say, well, actually, I blame you for asking.
I understand, Piers. Piers, I understand. I believe the woman is given to the man. I believe she's given away by the father. I believe she belongs to the man.
So fundamentally, you do believe that a woman becomes a man's property at marriage.
I believe she belongs to the man in marriage, correct.
Right. Oh, you see, that's...
He doesn't want to say she's property. I guess he doesn't really believe that anymore, or he's had... That's probably a clip that's gone really viral, and he's like, oh... Well, he made a good point again. What he said when he wasn't viral is not representative of what he would say now when he knows that a lot more people are watching. So I guess that means we should all be careful what we put out there, whether we're big or small. I guess that means I should be careful what I say right now, too.
To me, it's misogyny.
And you're entitled to your opinion.
Right. But do you not understand why people think it is misogyny?
I understand why some people can be very offended by what I say. What they do is they take a point like that and they ignore all the other points I make the other way around.
Yeah, but that's why I've repeatedly asked you about that line to see if you've changed your position. But the reality is you haven't.
It's not about changing positions. I'm a full-grown adult and I stick by the things I say and I'm responsible for them.
Which, by the way, is fine.
Absolutely.
But you did say at the start of this little exchange, you said, I wouldn't maybe say things the same way now that I did before I was famous. And yet, actually, you've doubled down and said exactly the same thing.
On certain points.
So that is what you believe. And that's my point.
Yes.
I'm trying to work out, look, I don't know you. We've just met, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out who Andrew Tate is and what you actually believe.
I
don't want to twist anything at all.
Then let me make it very, very clear to the camera. I believe a woman is given to the man in marriage. I believe that. I also believe a man has a duty to protect and provide for her. I believe a man should lay down his life if something happens or his wife's life is threatened. I believe that women and children first are on the lifeboats.
But men,
I believe that men...
Right, but a man doesn't own a woman.
It's not, no, it's...
Unless
okay.
they literally buy them as a slave.
Well, obviously we're not talking about that. We're talking about religious, biblical marriage. We're talking about something else.
Yeah, but I'm a Christian. I don't believe that I own my wife.
Do you believe your wife was given away to you when she took your last name?
I believe that there is a process where a father traditionally walks his daughter down the aisle and hands his daughter to this man, and they stand there and become a union of two loving people in a partnership. No, there's no ownership involved.
I didn't say
ownership. He's not selling her. The father of the bride isn't selling his daughter.
No, absolutely.
That's what property means.
She becomes a member of your family.
Is it?
I think we're arguing over semantics.
We're not, though, because fundamentally, I don't believe a man owns a woman. You do.
Well, I don't think a man owns any sovereign individual. I don't think we live in the world of slavery. I don't own any men or any woman.
Right.
Nobody owns
When
anybody.
you use phrases like property, that's what you imply.
I understand.
And so my point again is, you're a smart guy, right?
Correct,
There's no denying that. You're a smart, you're a good talker. I've seen a lot of the stuff. But what I don't think you quite fully understand...
No, I understand very well,
when
Piers.
young, impressionable people
I understand
who
that
are
very
not
well.
as smart see things like, I think my sister is her husband's property, yes, and you've just reaffirmed that belief. They think that they have the right to own women.
I understand that very well, Piers.
Say what you want about Andrew Tate, but he had to be pretty smart to get to this point, to get more searches than Donald Trump. That's something.
That's why people think you're a misogynist.
Completely. I understand all of this very well, which is why when you're saying I was backtracking, I'm not.
Do you have any regret, though, over the way you phrase this stuff?
Well, this is the point I was trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is, when I was not nearly as famous and I was making long format content, I was not sitting there anticipating I'd become the most Googled man on the planet and that a few seconds could be taken out of context. That was not my anticipation.
No, but it's still what you believed. It's what you believe now. So what's the difference?
It's not about, you're asking me, you're saying that young people who are impressionable.
If you said to me, look, Piers, honestly, I've had time to think about this and I wish I hadn't said it, I don't believe that. That's one thing. Actually, you've said the opposite. You said, actually, that's what I think. Yeah.
I think that when a...
So it doesn't really matter whether you recorded it when you're famous or not famous. It's what you actually believe, right?
I believe that a man has a duty to protect and provide for a woman. I believe that a woman's father gives her away to the man. That's what I believe, and that's in my marriage. That's the circumstance I'm going to live under. If people want to live in a different scenario, that's completely theirs.
He's not going to say the word
prerogative.
property.
You went on to say about authority over women. If I have a responsibility over her, I must have a degree of authority.
Yeah.
For the same reason, if I have responsibility over and people are going to use their mind, it's an example, an analogy. Responsibility over a child, I have to have some authority.
Yeah.
So you believe as part of your ownership or your property of the woman, you have authority over her.
No, I believe if you have...
That's what you said.
I believe if you have responsibility over something, you have to have a degree of authority or you can't be responsible.
Yeah, but authority means, again, that you're the boss.
The point I'm making, if you'll please let me finish at this point, the point I was trying to make was talking about the safety of a woman. She was walking alone at night, and I was saying, well, I wouldn't let my woman walk alone at night. And they said, well, you're not in charge of her, you don't get to decide what she does. I said, I understand, but if I'm responsible for her safety, and I'm the person who's burdened with making sure she is safe, I have to have the authority to say, don't put yourself in unsafe situations. The two things are linked.
Well, you don't have authority. You can absolutely have the right to say to the woman you're with, I don't think you should, but ultimately...
If she decides, then I can't force her.
Right, so authority implies that you have the ability to control someone.
No, authority implies that I have the moral right to sit and say that that's an irresponsible thing to do and I'm responsible for
That's not what authority means.
Well, I'm not going to... If you think I'm going to lock somebody up in their room, is that what you're implying?
No, I don't think you know what authority means.
I know what it means. I'm saying that if I...
Just a different description of what authority means.
If I have responsibility for her safety, then I have to have the authority to tell her not to do unsafe
things. Yeah, but authority means that you have some form of control over this woman.
I think you're trying to... What you're trying to do...
I'm only trying to get to what you think. Honestly, I am. I come with no agenda here at all.
I understand. And I'm explaining very, very clearly. If I have responsibility over said subject, I have to have authority over it. So let me say you have children, right?
Right.
You have responsibility for them.
No, I have legal authority over my children. That is very different to having legal authority over my wife or my female partner.
Completely, but the point I'm trying to make...
So you accept that?
I accept that
you used the analogy of responsibility for a child.
My friend, these are very...
These are actually really important things.
They're important things, but you interrupt me every 5 seconds, so it's hard for me to actually explain my point.
Yeah.
The point I'm making here is very simple. You have children and you're responsible for their safety. So you're going to have authority to say, don't go out at night, perhaps, because you want them to be safe.
I have legal authority.
You have a legal authority.
Yeah.
Legal authority. I'm saying that
Piers, the authority you have over your children is not only legal. Okay, you're a parent. You're not doing it because you're legally obligated. Like, if there were no laws, you'd still have that authority. It's not the legal system that gives you that authority over your children. Why does it keep saying legal authority? It's like he's scared to say he has authority. He's trying to divorce himself from that, like, responsibility, authority that, you know, inherent authority that you might have over your kids. The truth is, you do have inherent authority. You can't just put it on the legal and say it's the legal that forces me. No, you have it, like, God-given or whatever we can call it. That's just the way it works.
that if I had a woman, and the question where you've raised this soundbite from, I was asked about protecting a woman, making sure she's safe. And I would say I wouldn't want her to go out at night on her own because I'm responsible for her safety. And someone said, well, you don't have authority over her to do that. And I said, well, no, I can't force her to stay inside. But if she were to ask me, how do I protect myself at night? I would say, well, you should stay inside. That's how you should do it.
I don't have an issue with what
So
you
we
just
agree.
said. No.
It's the semantics.
No,
you're
it's not semantics. And this is where I don't think you quite get why there's a furore over what you say, with respect. Because the semantics point would be if we're saying the same thing in different ways, but we're not. I'm saying to you that when you say I have to have some authority over a woman, I say to you, you have no right to any authority over a woman. You do over a child if it's your child, because you are the legal appointed guardian of that child.
Understood.
You're not a legally appointed guardian or authority over your wife or female partner.
legally appointed.
I don't like the fact that he keeps using legal. Like, it has to be the law that gives that authority. And that there's no other way. Like, that's the impression I get from what he's saying. Like, legal authority. I think in some cultures, people would see it that way. I'm not so sure that in today's world, that kind of sentiment is widely accepted and accommodated. But to each their own. I don't believe in imposing our own beliefs onto other cultures. But if we are doing things differently today, and the world is going to change because of how technology has changed and our societies have changed. And so we do have to adapt to that. But I do believe in encouraging and inspiring, I would say, for lack of a better word, other cultures to change and not forcing them. Because we have to respect choices at the end of the day, and what people choose to do. Choices, like freedom of choice, is kind of like the ultimate freedom if you think about it. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that point.
Absolutely not. I agree. However, when it comes to things like personal responsibility or personal safety, men, largely by society, are accepted. We're the protectors and providers. We can sit here and pretend that in the world we live in, if me and my wife were walking down the street and men were to come up and try and attack us, I wouldn't be the one fighting. But we both know in reality I would.
Right.
I have a degree of responsibility to protect her. So if I have a degree of responsibility to protect her physically, then the point I'm trying to make is I will do my best to make sure she's never putting herself in unsafe situations.
Do you wish you hadn't used the word authority?
The authority is something that she would give to me. She would come to me and say, how can I make sure I'm as safe as possible?
But I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to point out that's not what authority means.
If someone gives, a person can give
voluntary authority is not authority.
No, but that's the point.
It's not.
Piers.
Andrew, stop.
Piers, if a woman comes to me and says, I want you to keep me safe, she is handing me authority for her safety.
But do you understand the difference between having authority over somebody and somebody giving you permission to have authority?
Completely. I never said
one is consensual and one isn't.
But why are we pretending I do unconsensual things?
Because you literally say, I must have a degree of authority. I have to have some authority. And the point
only if I'm responsible for her safety.
If he has to have authority, he's not necessarily saying that it's authority that he takes away. Maybe he's saying he has to be in the kind of relationship way he has authority, consensual authority, like, Piers is not really making a strong point. I get where he's trying to go, but, like, I don't think he's really making a good point. Well, he makes a point when he questions the authority part, but then someone can, I guess, give the authority and say, you lead the way. It's like asking someone to lead you. When you choose someone to be like the leader in a team, in a group, then you're giving the person the authority and the responsibility to lead everyone else and to instruct. And we have to follow what that person's point of view is and what they have to, their guidance. So Piers is not really making a strong point here, because in society we give people authority all the time. Whether it's like the CEO of a company, he's given authority, so we have to follow what he has to say. As I said, just teams in general, the captain of a sports team has authority that's given to him, but then we do have to listen to what he says, and we do have to follow. We are agreeing to follow his way and his instruction. So Andrew could pretty much say, like, I need to be in a relationship that allows me to have that authority, where she understands that I'm the one leading and she follows my lead. And it's a given authority, but it's like an agreed upon authority. And at the same time, it's like, I give you instruction and you follow based on what I understand. Since I now have the authority over you and the family, then now you have to, I guess I would say, obey or follow. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if people want to be in that type of situation, if he says that's what he wants and he believes that that's how his relationship should be set up, then who is anyone to say otherwise if the woman is agreeing with him? I think the modern ideas are interfering with these kind of old school ways of family structures or relationship structures, and a lot of these things are becoming more and more shocking to the modern ear or mind, but traditionally are pretty normal. It's difficult to say what is right and what is wrong, but in this case, I don't like Piers' line of questioning. I think he's trying to get at something that, like, his point is not strong enough to challenge what he's saying. That's the impression I get.
I'm not responsible for her safety. I don't have authority.
If your position now is that with her permission, I would like to have authority when we go out at night to protect her, that's a different
That was
thing.
always my position.
But that's not what you said.
But that was always my position, Piers.
So
That's not
again,
what you
I simply say to you,
It is what I said, though.
Do you wish you'd phrased it a different way?
No, because we're talking about long format copy where I'm talking about a woman who has come to me and said, you're responsible for making sure I'm safe. I said, well, then I have to make the decisions.
When an
which gives me
18-year-old
authority.
boy reads, I must have some authority over a woman, what do you think he thinks?
Well, I understand that, and I said this earlier when you tried to say I was backtracking, which I'm not doing.
No, actually, I'm not. I don't want to.
Okay.
I'm not trying to gotcha you.
Cool.
I'm trying to work out exactly what you actually
I understand
think.
with massive fame comes massive responsibility. I understand that a percentage of the population are always going to take everything that's said by anybody out of context.
Would you change the wording of what you said?
No, I would just encourage people to watch my long format copy and understand it
Would
fully.
you tell an 18-year-old boy you don't have authority over women?
Absolutely.
You would say that?
Unless a woman comes to him and says, you're responsible for my safety, please make sure, keep me safe. Like
I
my
see.
woman
Now
says,
that
comes to
Andrew
me.
Tate, I can sign up to.
Well, then we agree.
Yeah, but I don't agree with what you said before.
Because you're taking a soundbite from a 2-hour
yeah, but
conversation.
you haven't been taken out of context because I've read you the entire sentence. It's very.
But you've
debatable.
ignored all the context around the sentence, my friend.
You can't ignore a sentence that says, I must have a degree of authority.
But you can when there's a 2-hour conversation where a woman is telling me if she makes me responsible for her safety and me explaining, well, if I'm responsible for your safety, I have the authority to make decisions. So yes, you've ignored all the context.
Do you respect women?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Do you think that 18, 19-year-old women are more attractive than 25-year-old women?
I think there's attractive people. That's a loaded question. I don't know.
Well, it's not really, is it?
I can't.
You know why I'm asking you?
Of course I do, but I can't sit here and
for
say.
the benefit of viewers who
Why?
don't know why I'm asking, you said this. I'm going to blow up the internet. I'll blow up the internet right effing now. The reason 18 and 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25-year-olds is because they've been through less dick. People say, oh, you can't say that, but yes, I can. A 19-year-old is more attractive than a 26-year-old woman, and I'll tell you why. Because that 26-year-old has talked to more guys, been to the club more times. That is misogyny.
Why?
Because you are encouraging a mindset about 25-year-old women that makes them sound out to be infinitely less desirable than 18, 19-year-olds, and having effectively been having too much sex to be taken in a more respectful way.
Yikes, I guess. That's, I don't know the kind of girls he's hanging around with, but that's not always the case. It's not true. That's just, yeah, you can't just generalize all women to be like that and assume that that's what all women do. So that's what I can say about that.
Well, firstly, even if that was the case, that wouldn't be misogyny.
But what did you mean by what you said?
That's not misogyny because it's not anti-women. I'm saying that an 18 or a 19-year-old woman would be more desirable.
Pretty anti-25-year-old woman.
Anti-25-year-old women we can argue, but not misogyny.
Well, that's misogyny then, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Well, being anti any woman at all is misogyny.
Not when I'm saying that women are beautiful and attractive at a certain age and saying the age.
You're saying 18, 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25.
Well, than ageist perhaps, but misogynistic absolutely
Is that
not.
but you just accepted it was misogyny.
No, I didn't. You said it was misogyny. I'm telling you, no, it's not.
So you don't think if you're
You said it's
saying
not.
slightly hateful things about a 25-year-old...
That's not slightly hateful.
Well, it is. You think you say that to a woman's face if she's 25?
It's not slightly hateful. When
So you would go up to a 25-year-old woman and tell her exactly what I've just read out?
Why would I walk up to a random 25-year-old
Because you said it
woman
in public
and
on
say
the
that?
internet, and it's been listened to and watched by millions and millions of young,
Correct.
impressionable boys.
Correct. There was a large panel. There was a conversation. There was hours long of conversation. There were feminists attacking men for toxic masculinity and attacking me and saying things. And I said things back which were going to antagonize
But I think,
them. Which you've done yourself a bunch of times.
I think a lot of allegations of toxic masculinity are not toxic.
Correct.
I do think that kind of sentence that I just read out, that paragraph, is actually toxic. If you genuinely mean
I would
that,
say it
and you
is.
say you wouldn't say it to a woman's face, but you said it in public about women of that age, I do think that's misogynist. And I think you probably do too.
I don't think it's misogynistic. I understand why it can be insulting to
You wouldn't say it to a woman's face.
Well, it depends. You're making out like I'm walking around the street going up to random 25-year-olds.
Well, effectively, you're doing it to tens of millions of people online. There's no difference.
Not
is
at
there?
all. We're discussing a topic. We were discussing the ideal age of a man.
Should young boys, right, in their teens, are you comfortable that they would have that mindset? Be honest.
I think that young boys in their teens lack life experience. They lack nuance. And they need to be very, very careful what they're digesting online, whether it's my content or anybody else's. I think
You
should
know
say
for a
that
fact millions of them are digesting
the video.
exactly what you're saying.
completely. The entire internet, to a degree, I think any subject you can find, there's going to be a whole heap of
I come
content.
back to the Joe Rogan thing, Andrew. Is that a lot of what you say, I agree with.
Yeah.
Right? I do, genuinely. I've read a lot of stuff you said. A lot of the stuff you talk about,
what?
I think, yeah, he's got a good point, right? So we agree about a lot of things. But when I read that kind of thing, I'm like, how much of that is you? How much of that is some act? Do you regret saying stuff like this?
I don't.
And actually, do you see it as weakness to admit you shouldn't have said something like that?
No, I don't live with regret. I think what's happened is that, like I said, long format content, arguments with feminists, arguments with the toxic masculine crowd, arguments with the left, and they're going to take a small clip, small sentence from ours, and they're going to try and paint me as a
But
villain.
I'm not left or right.
I don't know what you are, Piers.
Exactly. That's my point. No, but that's my point.
And I understand. And you're doing exactly as I knew would happen on this interview, which is because you're a busy man. You're not going to watch hours and hours and hours of video.
Actually, I have watched hours and hours of video, and I'm going to come to the stuff where I agree with you, and I'm going to come to the stuff about your censorship, which
Sure.
I have issues with. So this is, it's a long interview, right?
Sure.
I just thought off the top, you said to me, and you were quite bold about it, well, go on, then let's go through these.
And you should keep going. I will sit here and stand by what I said. I believe that
on
man...
that, I just read to you then.
Yeah.
Do you wish you hadn't said that?
I understand how it's been misconstrued. I understand how it's been weaponized against me. Do I regret it because it's been weaponized and used against me? Well, that's slightly annoying.
That's not why I want you to
Did I
regret
at the time mean what I said in the context of the conversation, which obviously you're not familiar with and the people at home are not familiar with? No, I meant what I said.
The 25-year-old women, they've just talked to more guys, been to the club more times, been effed and dumped more times, more arguments, more mess, more for me to clean up.
Well, there's a whole bunch of context and conversation around that's been missed, and I
don't think I'm missing much context.
Well, I encourage people who are interested to go watch it.
Right, but I mean, I've just read out 3 sentences on the bounce there. I don't think there's any context I'm missing. I mean, you made it pretty clear what you think about the difference between 18 and 90-year-old women.
I wasn't talking about myself, even. I was talking with a Muslim guy who was on the panel, and he was explaining how youth is very valued in most parts of the world, and why virginity is valued in most parts of the world. The feminists were arguing against it, and I was sitting there, actually very much like you, a mediator between the two, explaining why in most of the world still today, perhaps not in the Western world, virginity is coveted, youth is coveted in most of the world, and throughout all of human history. And I was sitting there making the point, explaining why in certain parts of the world they think how they do,
well, even though
it's very different to the Western world. So I was making a point, mediating between two groups very similar to yourself. The conversation has been misunderstood. They've taken this clip of it, and it's been weaponized and used against me. I understand that is because I am now the most famous Google person on the planet. It's inconvenient, sure, but I'm definitely not a danger to women in any regard. I date women 25, 26, 27 years old all the time. None of them are offended by the things
I don't think you're a danger to women.
Of course not.
I think the danger, if it concerns you, the danger is the influence you have on young men.
So I'm going to stop there just because it's a really long video and I don't want to make this too long. But I think I'll continue this because it's an interesting conversation. And so far, I feel like I have sort of a better impression of him because I guess he gets to defend himself right here, and he's calm and not, making all those out there statements that Piers played on the clip. Yeah, he seems like kind of like a normal guy. But yeah, some of the statements like about, 25-year-olds and all that, would be great if he didn't have those clips out there. I'm not seeing the parts where Andrew Tate is, the threat that people have made him out to be. I'm yet to see those threatening parts, but I get that I might be missing some context. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing out on context, or if there are any videos that you think people like me who don't understand him should watch to understand him better, then yeah, please do link them below. I'd love to watch and give my own opinion. As usual, let me know if this kind of video is interesting in any way to any of you guys. I'm just experimenting with YouTube and the internet in general and trying to figure out stuff to make on YouTube, whether it's reaction videos or commentary videos or just like general opinion. I love the comments that are coming through and all the explanations, and I really, really appreciate each and every one of you that have subscribed. You have no idea how it feels like when I get a single subscriber. I just look at their name and I'm like, thank you so much. I just feel really appreciative of that. So if you've watched to the end of this video, then kudos to you. But thank you so much for tuning in, and please do come back or leave a comment, leave a like, or subscribe. I would love to get to 1,000 subscribers. You don't have to watch my videos. You can just subscribe and then never have to see me again. I'm just trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so that I can see if I can monetize my videos. But thank you so much once again, and see you next time. Bye.